That was, of course, the very famous theme song and opening for the Japanese anime show Nijiru Toriatama, translated into English as Nigel Birdhead. You see, this anime was neither particularly popular nor very good, but it's one of my favorites because it's a tale of love and glory, and I really appreciate that. Shut the up! And I really appreciate that. And yeah, so I just wanted to, because it's never been released in America, I put together a compilation just summing up the first 7 episodes, which make up the Kurokoku arc of the anime, and I just put those together to show the American viewers just what it's all about. Also, I should mention that to avoid international copyright laws, from here on out, it will all be my personal fan art. So the anime begins on a sort of deserted planet, and we don't really know what planet it is, but I've deciphered for myself that it's probably the moon that orbits the Earth. I'll delve a little bit more into my theory later on in this movie, in this clip show here. But we don't know what this planet is, but we're introduced to it, and we're introduced to our hero. There he is. His name is Nijiro Toriatama, and in English, that translates to Nigel Birdhead. So that's why I think in translating Nijiru Toriatama, I've taken the liberty of calling it Nigel Birdhead, and there he is. I've drawn him for you. And he's stranded on this planet, and he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know where he is, or neither do we. I mean, we learn a little bit more of that as the series progresses, but in the beginning, we know basically nothing about our protagonist, and so he's walking around these wastelands, and there's some beautiful, beautiful shots of just like craters and things. And eventually, what happens is he runs to this guy, and here's oh, I forgot. Also, in the previous picture, yeah, and Nigel Birdhead here should not be wearing. He's wearing his uniform here, which he doesn't get until episode 3, uh, uh, episode 2. Sorry. Okay, so he shouldn't be wearing this uniform. He's not wearing this uniform in the actual series. So part of the error in my art here. Right. So he meets this guy, and his name. This is Kazuo Furutsu, and this guy, he's also living here with his little buddy Orokada, and they're just two guys, I guess, living on this planet here, which I know personally is the moon because I figured that out through all the clues that they left. But we'll take it. It's a planet because we don't really know, and we're not supposed to know just yet. And Kazuo Furutsu is living here with Orokada. Here's a picture of Orokada. Actually, he's supposed to be wearing yellow, not green. Yeah, okay, like that. And yeah, so and they're traveling the planet, and there's a ship there, and the three of them take the ship and they leave the planet, and that's how episode 1 ends. All right, moving right along to episode 2. You see, episode 2 starts right where episode 1 ended, and that's with them flying away in the rocket ship. You got the three buddies there, the Jiru to Oriatama, you got Kazuo Furutsu and Orokada. And so they're on this, they leave this planet that they were just on in this ship, and they're intercepted by a military ship, and that's piloted by Captain Sencho Nihiyaki, and he's the captain on the ship, and you can tell by his hat. And the hat is very important, so take notice of his hat because it comes in very important later in the series. So they're on this ship, it's a military ship, and you first hear about Kurokoku, who's the sort of intergalactic warlord, and that the military is trying to fight against him. And so they're going around the ship, they get their uniforms, because now they're members of the army, and see, now is when Nijiru Toritama is wearing his uniform. Earlier he was not wearing his uniform, even though I had drawn him that way. It was a mistake on my part, you must understand. So they meet Okina Otoko, he's the big guy of the group, he's the heart of the group, and they become friends with him, and he joins them. So now there are 4 of them: the Jiru Toritama, Kazuo Furutsu, Orokada, and Okina Otoko, and they're all led by Captain Sencho Nihiyaki. And there's a whole episode where they meet each other and they learn about Koru Koko. And their first mission is to the planet Kasai, which, according to my theory, is Mars, because you'll see the planet is very red when they go there, and it just generally it looks like Mars, it sounds like Mars, the proximity to the asteroid field, and if I was right and the planet is the moon, it just makes sense. And the episode 2 ends with them in their ship going to Mars, or the planet Kazai. And that's how we lead right into episode 3 here. They're still, they land on Kasai on the planet, and they find evidence of Kuro Koku and his men there. Kuro Koku, the scourge of the galaxy, and they find his army there. And when they see his soldiers, and Nijiru Toritama, Nigel Birdhead, he has a flashback to burning buildings and just general badness because we don't know, maybe his family was hurt by Kuro Kaku and his men, but we don't know. We see that. And so the team, the four of them at this point, they get off the ship, the military ship, and they manage to invade one of Kuro Kaku's bases. And they're climbing around, and that's where they see Murasaki Sumire. And she's the head of this beast, and she's this kind of femme fatale. And they avoid her, or they think they do. But then they're captured by Murasaki and the army of Kurokaku. And so now they're in Kurokaku's clutches with no way out. And episode 3 sort of it ends on a cliffhanger like that, like they're all captured, and what are they gonna do, you know? And that, of course, brings us right into episode 4, where they're in the base, the four of them, and they're all tied up. And Murasaki Sumire, she's the head of the base, she comes and she tortures them. And she tells them her story of how she ended up working for Kuro Kaku. And, hey, what the are you doing? What the She tells the story of how she was tortured by Kurokako and proceeds to torture them in the same way. And it's a very brutal scene, and it's one of the reasons why the show Nijiro Toritama was canceled so early and was received such a mature rating. And they managed, however, to convince her to leave Kurokaku, and they do, even though they're all a little psychologically traumatized by that point. But they convince Murasaki to abandon Kurokaku and his army, and she does, but she doesn't join them. She goes as she's a third party now, and she leaves. By the way, I forgot to mention that Ijiro, when he was being tortured and being told the tale of Murasaki's torture, he had flashbacks again to his own torture and to his own torturing of somebody else, and it was left ambiguous there as to what exactly that meant. But it ends with Murasaki untying them and then leaving, and Nijiru and the company they leave, and that's the end of episode 4, is them leaving Kasei, having secured the base. Well, that brings us right into episode 5, which is possibly the most famous episode of Nijiro Toritama, of Nigel Birdhead, the Japanese anime, because of the asteroid fight that happens in this episode. That's right. While escaping from Kazai after they have taken the base, the group of four, they're calling themselves the powerful team. The four of them, they continue the fight they have a fight in the asteroid field. They meet back up with Captain Secho Nihiyake, and they're with him now, and so they try to go through the asteroid field in between Kazai and the next planet, Bokuse. And there are asteroids there, and I'm sorry, I know, I'm sorry. And what they do is they're members of Kuro Kaku's army waiting for them there. And so there's a big dogfight among the asteroids there, and it's pretty epic. And they win, of course, and they get to Mokusai to find that the entire planet is under siege. So that episode 6 begins with them landing on Mokusai, which going according with my theory that Kazai is Mars and the planet that we started on was the moon. That would make Mokusai Jupiter. It has the same red eye, the red dot of Jupiter is the red eye of Mokusai. So that leads me to believe that we're definitely talking about Jupiter here. So they land on Mokusai to find that it's been entirely conquered by the forces of Kurokaku. And buildings are burning just like it looks very similar to the flashback that Nigel Birdhead had earlier in the show back on Kazai in episode 4. And we find out that the princess of Makusai is actually Gurepu Frutsu, who is Kazuo's sister, and they launch an attack on the castle and rescue her. And she and Nigel share a kiss, and it's very romantic. And yeah, yeah. And but just when they think that Mokusai is saved, that's when Kurokaku himself arrives on the planet, and that's when you know that things are bad, when Kurokaku himself arrives, and that's one of the biggest cliffhangers in the series besides the end of episode 7 to the end of episode 6, that Kurokaku, who's just been sort of behind the scenes playing in the shadows the entire time, he's actually here, and that's a pretty big deal. So that's the end of episode 6. And then, of course, is the seventh and final episode of Nijiru Toyotama of Nigel Birdhead. Final not only of the Kurokaku arc, but of the entire show itself, because it was cancelled after this episode. So all of the plot lines that they mentioned, Nijiru's sister or brother or his sibling, his parents, we never know his backstory, we never really know anything. But episode 7 starts with Kurokaku coming down to Bokusai, and he brings with him the hat of Sencho Nihiyake, the captain, his captain's hat. I told you it would be important. That's how we know that Kurokaku has killed Captain Sencho Nihiyake. So the powerful team fight him one by one. Okinawa Toko is beaten by him. Kazuo Furutsu is beaten by him. Orikana is beaten by him. And then Nijiru Toyotama goes to fight him. And suddenly he summons all of his power. And he performs a powerful strike, and it's incredible. And it devastates Kurokaku, and he's severely wounded, and he's shocked. And he says that Nijiru is one of the powerful ones. And then he flees, he runs away, and that's the end of the Kurokaku arc. It's the end of Nigel Birdhead. It's entirely just those 7 episodes were the entirety of the show. And so ended what many would consider, well, not many, nobody really, except for me, maybe, would consider the greatest anime ever to come out of Japan, Nigel Birdhead. And those were the summation of the first of the only 7 episodes for all you Americans who didn't get the chance to watch it in Japanese. Well, alright, that's all. Thanks for watching.